Did you take it with juniors or?
Because last year I had to
Well, yeah, 8.
Alright, yeah, I don't know where Miss Alsmeyer is, but I will go print out some Cornell notes for you guys. We'll get started. I don't expect us
What if I died?
to be here too long. Because the battery died.
Yeah, you can't tell it's not moving.
Exactly. So,
I'm just saying.
Mr. Quigley, do you want your scissors back?
Those are my scissors.
They were sitting right here.
Don't
Yes,
pass-
and it says
don't give them
1.8
a
on
sofa.
them.
I'll take them.
I'll take him to the library.
I'll take the library.
Probably a little bit out.
We have so many stickers in the
I would take it, I would take my scissors. Yeah, I think scissors are
People are so terrible.
Yeah, you did.
You let them out. They we're
What,
going back.
you let him out? No, I do that.
George Washington, which is also in.
What did I do?
I had to do it both times.
Okay.
After this, I'm going to vending machine.
John Hopkins in Maryland.
Yeah.
I can't have any sodas until the end of the month,
I don't
but
think
it will
that's
definitely be a happy
So,
birthday.
is that peanut butter?
To John Hopkins in Maryland, to
That was
Georgia,
not
no,
what you said at first.
to the University of Georgia,
Yeah.
You know, my,
to,
Would you like a peanut butter?
you gonna kill me?
Oh my
Well, at least it's
to
not,
the University of Southern California, to Stanford, to Berkeley, and to Newton.
Have you gotten mad at us?
And possibly.
I don't worry, when she puts those 10 days on her face, that was
I know, I know, that's,
That's for
Elijah?
your internet.
I said, who do you have this year?
10%.
I have a vague
idea or.
It's Howard's also.
So your assistant very.
You just don't like any milk.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I like this stuff.
Yeah, but you don't like Miss Conley and you don't like Miss Howard. Those are the two ends of the spectrum. Chill,
No.
don't chill.
Today, I did, this was probably the chillest teacher I ever had.
Miss Howard, definitely.
I love this one.
I think it's still on top of it.
And she went to
Yeah, I-
the refrigerator with some sour holding the bowl.
Yeah, so I still, we're still waiting on
Oh my
our
God.
test.
And that was it.
Virginia,
Miss Howard.
Virginia, we're still waiting on our test, we took it in September.
No, I think.
Well, yes, I understand this. That's the one drawback.
Yeah, it takes a forever, it's been more than a month. What about this year?
Yeah.
She and her daughter, she started science after.
Year one.
Oh, God, we need to remember that, the meeting.
I don't
There, I can't go.
She wasn't slow.
She wasn't slow, but she
It
was.
because you put in the test correct.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I have an A.
I know, yeah, it's not moving.
So-
Carmen had one job.
Saying A.
Wait till you put that essay in.
Oh, yeah, you put in the essays. She sent the essays during the testing.
Wait, who?
For you guys, yeah.
No, we don't have, no, we don't have essays.
We had one essay.
Am
He
I?
hasn't put them in.
Yeah, for us, for
There's
our life.
life.
Sophie, what about yours?
What is this?
Did Mr. Shice put in the essays?
Wait, how many blocks of paper should we have?
He only has two.
And not blocks.
What grade?
Third and seven.
What grade you?
That grade.
Was
This
it?
team, I wish I could be more class.
I want to see that.
Yeah, before the
But I'm
test.
typically good, I have always one C. Cause my AP,
You want to put that in
It
grade?
must have only fixed our grade.
is that
You
70?
said you kind of like grades.
This one is
Yeah,
our
70.
This
Yeah, I get it, okay.
How many is there left?
Yeah, that's that.
Just two.
I guess.
Well, I didn't get, those are my two lowest grades.
I've got an 88. Yeah. Oh my gosh, my A-push grade went from, I didn't do one assignment and my A-push grade went from a 98 to a 72. And I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, whoa, one assignment?
He put in the test corrections.
No, I take my A-push online.
I know, but I got test corrections in and it went from a
Already?
96 to an 88.
Wait, stop.
2 points plus
What is this?
What? I went from an 86 to a 91. How does that work out?
I went from a,
I went from.
I don't know how
I don't know
this
what
works.
I was
Wait,
But everything else was
Just let me know.
over 100.
We can lie.
I have
Actually,
two,
are you
one's in
serious?
a Steve, and
You
eight.
100.
I have 4 A's, 4 B's.
Oh, I have,
I have two.
Alright folks, let's get rolling.
That's a good class.
You guys can compare grades later.
This is typically what we do is academics.
Oh, it's commendable.
Yes.
I'm proud of my 4 A's, 4 B's.
It's the DM. Don't you wanna be like an
Actually, yeah, done with it.
Yeah, you want to be the physicist,
Yeah, I know.
and yet I'm not the calculus.
Or you just accept the fate of being a history major.
Virginia, we're no longer
And
friends.
you math isn't important.
I'm gonna be like a history
I don't think it's like
I'm sorry. History was my thing.
I'm majoring in
Which
one pre-med.
So you're in school until you're 35?
No.
I'm gonna be 30. I'm gonna be.
Alright, so, welcome back everybody. I do not know where Miss Osmeyer is. That is okay. I'm late in class today anyway again. Sorry. But, so most of you guys have permission slips in, which is good. I know Elijah just talked to Miss Osmeyer about that, but,
What did she say?
speak of the devil.
What did she?
You look like you've had an afternoon.
Uh-oh, we've been dealing with a few incidents.
Yep.
that we're not happy
So testing morning was a slow burn.
with. Testing actually was delightful.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Did everything
Well,
after
the-
lunch ever.
Yeah, the storm that surrounds it.
Guys, how's everybody in here?
Good.
I didn't know
Tired.
what you wanted for if you needed one to put anything on the agenda, but this is effectively what I've gone on. But
I was gonna say, yeah, you're doing the thing, and I looked at the clock and I thought, oh my god, I hope there was
You're good.
like yeah, I've got some Cornell notes to pass back.
and I gave him blank ones, so.
Excellent, thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
Permission slips, we've got some more.
Yes, good, okay. Who wants to go ahead and tell me that I don't have theirs?
What did you get?
Permission slip.
Elijah.
I slid mine.
You just
I
got
don't
mine.
have
I
yours.
slid mine out the door yesterday.
I believe so, let me double check. All right, hold that thought.
Here, let me get some water real quick.
Yes, Cameron, I do have yours. And now I've got John's, Virginia's, Xavier's, and Ebony's. Elijah, you gonna bring me yours?
I can't because my mom's the one who signs the permission slip and she's in Ohio because of UPS.
Okay, you and I will talk in a second, we can fix that, no worries. He went away, what has he told you, what you been up to?
We just.
We basically have been
We
waiting.
just got the dinner.
The screen just turned on, we just left
And he
him.
went
Okay.
to some water.
Okay, all right, let me give you a few announcement updates. I've got some Cornell notes to give back to you. You just gave me some permission slips, that's fantastic. I still owe you feedback and grades on your 4Cs organizers, and I apologize, that has taken longer than I had intended. However, you will have feedback and grades on those before Monday, because Monday, when you go to the library, you need to start researching your topic, and you're probably gonna wanna know what your topic ought to be at that point. Now, Carson, you and John, you as well, y'all joined us a little bit later, so we've got a little more time to get y'all caught up, so don't stress about that yet, okay? I want you two thinking of possible topic ideas for your research.
Oh, I already have one.
Excellent, all right, then you and I will talk soon. Did he remind you what all you need to bring, what time you're showing
No,
up?
he didn't say that.
Okay, all right, let's do that part. I already told you what to bring, right? You already know this. Flash drive, money, note cards if you're gonna use them. I'm gonna have source sheets for you. If you don't wanna do the note cards and you wanna do the source sheets instead, I'll have those for you. In fact, I'm gonna post those to Google Classroom like tonight. I meant to do that before class, but I got caught up in the office. I promised you an answer about the parking situation, and I don't have one yet, but I'll put it in an email tomorrow as soon as I do. Anyone who is riding with Mr. Kuklik and I, which at this point I think is just about everyone except possibly Termandre, please meet outside my office, 107, Monday morning, because keep in mind, this is this coming Monday, and it makes me a little nervous that it's a Monday, I don't want you to forget. But Monday morning, if you'll meet outside my office at 8:30, okay?
Set reminders in your phones, guys.
Yes,
That's what I do.
I have to do it.
Yeah, set a reminder in your phone.
And
What number is that?
What number are you looking for?
that's the
one, thanks. And put this number in your phones, please. This is my cell phone number. Please enter me as a contact, and that way you can text me and say, Miss A, I'm on the way, I'm running late. Or,
Maddie,
Yeah.
every single time.
actually, I don't think I can do it.
107.
Yes.
Okay. So you can text me and say, I'm running late, or Miss A, where are you? Or if you get lost when you're at the library. Okay, so make sure you've got my number somewhere in your phone. You can put it in your notes for now and add it later.
I did.
What number is your?
107.
107.
Yes. I've got Mr. Eberlin on standby as a driver if we run out of room in our 2 cars. He's thrilled about that, let me tell you.
Wait, really? Oh,
Sarcasm.
Sarcasm.
No. What else do you need to know about the library?
You said you need flash drives, source sheets, and money.
Correct.
Oh, man, I forgot.
Did you find out about the library cards?
I didn't. I'll email you. It's on my to-do list, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so I remember that last year we searched the Thomas Cooper database for books that might have our topic, so that when we were going to the library, we could just automatically know the call number and where to go to get them.
I love you, Blythe. I've been teaching this class so long that even I have forgotten how to teach this class, but luckily you've taken it before and you know what I'm supposed to be doing. Yes, you are exactly right. Nobody be mad at Blythe for giving you homework. This is gonna save you, actually, but you are gonna have a homework assignment, and it's gonna be super easy. This is gonna be like the easiest A ever, and some of you could use an easy A. So, yeah, I'm gonna post a homework assignment in the Google Classroom. All it is going to the library catalog. I'll put a link. You're gonna go there, and you're gonna search your topic and see what books come up, and then you're gonna write down the call numbers for those books. That way, when you get to the library, it actually saves you a lot of time, and you know exactly what books to go and look for, and you don't have to waste time looking them up.
Yep.
And Mr. Kuklake is gonna demonstrate for you right now.
Yeah, so all you gotta do.
Yeah, look up here, guys, if you've never done this.
So if I go to University of South Carolina, Thomas Cooper Library,
I'm gonna post the link.
hit enter, it's this first one, library.sc.edu, and it's very, very easy to use. So you can do a quick search, article, books, movies, do a classic catalog search, but I mean the quick search is definitely the best functionality here. So if I was doing like French Revolution, let's say, for days, and for days. French Revolution, let's see if this works, yeah. So it's gonna bring up a whole host of stuff, right? So obviously French Revolution is very broad, so you can get French Revolution, let's see if, Louis the 16th. That's a little bit more specific, yeah. So you can get very specific here. If you get too specific, you might, be a little hard pressed to find things. But it's gonna give you everything. So the Oxford Handbook of the French Revolution, boom, right here. This is gonna tell you its location, right? What we are looking for is Columbia Cooper, because there are multiple USC campuses, they're all feeding into this same library system. So you are looking for this one, Columbia Cooper.
That's
You are also
super
looking-
important, guys.
Yes, very important. You're also looking for available, right? And if it's not available, it's not gonna be in the library, and it's probably not gonna be there by Monday, okay? And then, this is, I'm sure you guys have at least minimal experience looking at library websites. So it's gonna have the call number, right? That's the call number right there. It's gonna have a summary of it, maybe a little bit more information about it, but this is how you would go about doing this, okay? So it's very straightforward, again, taking you through it. When you go to the University of South Carolina, Thomas Cooper, just put in quick search, whatever you're looking for, okay?
And the
Very easy.
assignment that I'm gonna post is gonna ask you to basically find at least 5 books. And it's gonna ask you to list the call number of the book, the title of the book, the author of the book. And that way, when you show up at the library, you already have a lot of information to get started with. And you can always go to one of the librarians there and say, hey, I'm looking for this, can you help me? And they will help you find it. I'm gonna tell you this at the library, but just because I'm thinking about it now, one of the beauties of the library Dewey Decimal System is that once you find the one book,
All the rest are in the exact same spot. It's a beautiful blessing. You don't have to run around the whole library trying to find 20 books. Like, if you're doing a section on Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. literally has 4 rows of books that are dedicated to Martin Luther King Jr.
It was so great. I searched like the whole thing and I only found like one book that appeared on there that was like relevant, and I was like, this is only one book, what am I gonna do? And then I got there and I found it, and there was like this whole section that was just
Of
Yeah,
the same
Thomas
synonyms
Cooper,
of the words. And I was
5 floors underground of books.
A book.
Same Virginia, I had to go around.
Yes, really? Exactly.
I had to
And one of them, yeah.
I didn't have to, I was like,
here, you see a blue right here,
I'm doing it for
codes, and then tell me
Yeah, Thomas Cooper's
B and
great.
then 1S. Yeah. All right, good, okay. I already mentioned this last class, but just to reiterate, you are expected to spend 12 hours through the course of this semester physically in a library outside of Westwood High School. This trip will count for at least 4 of those hours, and so I'm gonna go ahead and give you your library log ahead of time so you can begin that assignment and begin filling it out. And again, we said the reason we do this is not to torture you, it is simply to force you to recognize the fact that there are so many resources outside of these walls that are better suited to your research. Westwood has great resources. I am not discouraging you. You ought to go up to that library and talk to those librarians. You ought to use Discus and some of the other databases that we have, but we don't have nearly as much money as the University of South Carolina. So we're gonna find a lot more when we go visit them.
Also, Richland County Library, Public Library, the one
Excellent.
on, it's the main branch, the one on, the blanking on Assembly Street, Assembly Street. That library is phenomenal.
It has.
It had, like, it's honest, like, it's one, like, best library in the nation before, it's very good. And so, and like, there's so many resources that would perfectly suit you guys. And not even just written stuff, they have a lot of audio and visual stuff as well there. Like, they have a whole entire room that's dedicated to audio visual, like, sources, so. And then obviously there's the Sand Hills branch, there's a branch that's always gonna be within good distance to you.
The other thing about this library day that I think will, I don't know about you all, but I always feel like these classes are super rushed. And I'm guessing you feel the same way, like you probably leave like, wait, I still didn't even get my question answered, like I have things I want to talk to Ms. A about, Mr. Cooper about my topic. We're gonna be together the whole day, and you're finally gonna have an opportunity to you can sit down with me for half an hour, and we can just talk about your project, talk about your topic, talk about, what does a paper look like if you're doing a paper. Some of you have picked some other categories that we've never done before, so you might want an opportunity to kind of look at some of that. So this is a whole day that you can just take a break from all of your other classes. I know that makes some of you nervous, but it'll be okay, it's just one day. All right, and you can focus on this project for this class. So that will be great too. We only have a few minutes left. I was gonna say, do you have anything, or do we wanna take questions about like how best to use?
Yeah, so what I was gonna do with you guys, and I know, we're running out of time. What I had printed out for you guys are some examples of sources, that are pretty easy to read. And I'll just pass out one of them, and we can we can talk about it a little bit, and we won't do exactly
This, by the way, is a perfect example of something that should go into your binder. So we talked about having a binder for this class. This is one thing that you're gonna wanna hole punch and add to that binder. Okay, so that you start keeping all your notes in one place.
Yeah.
Your Cornell notes that I'm passing back ought to be going into your binder, okay? Question?
I just want to go to that last thing, because on
I will look.
I didn't know that I have.
I'll take whatever you've got, because for some reason, I thought I had seen yours, but then when I went to actually look at the stack, I didn't have yours, and I got confused. I'll go back and look in the classroom, because I think you're right. I think there's somewhere that I saw.
Shared it with you.
Yeah, I think you did, and I like somehow couldn't get back to them. Okay, good, thank you, Sophie.
Alright, so what I pass out to you guys is a fairly easy to read primary source. And it's actually super entertaining for me, the history nerd. But this is very simply Napoleon talking about his account of his coup d'etat, when he overthrows the French government and instills a new government with him as the head. But this source, I think, hits on, there's a lot of examples here of things that when you actually start to look at sources, you're gonna wanna look for. Remember, we talked last week about how you actually go about finding a source and then reading it, right? You need to source the source before you actually go about reading it. And so here, at the very top, the source doesn't start until right here. But at the very top here, you have a lot of really, really important information that you need to consider before you actually go about reading the source, right? So up top, very simply, ignoring this document 5.1 thing, what is that first line right there? What is that telling you?
Also, his words.
Right, so we know who wrote this, or who said this. Napoleon. So this is, Napoleon's own, it was, verbally, but then written down. And his account of his coup d'etat, right? So that is the title of the source. That is telling you what the source is. What do we have right after that? The date. Why is the date important when you read a primary source? Contextualization, right? It puts it in context. It gives you some sense of what was happening at the time, right? So this was said and then written on November 10th, 1799, right? The date's really important because if this had been said right at the end of Napoleon's life while he's dying on an island in the Atlantic Ocean, it would probably be a little bit different, right? So having that date is really important because for you as acting as a historian in your paper, if you were using this source, you would say this source was written in 1799. In 1799, Napoleon did yada yada yada, which reflects in this source, right? You are talking about the source using that date as kind of that jumping off point. If this was written in 1812 or 1815, right, you could say this source was written in 1815, but recounts a time that happened 12, 15 years earlier. That implies that the source could be suffering from, it could be wrong or it could be exaggerated, right? You're talking about what that date means. So that date is really, really important because like Sophie says, it helps to give you context. Like contextualization is this really big history term, but all that means is helping you put it in context of what's happening in the larger world.
If I were to go back and write about myself in high school, but I'm writing about it now, I'm gonna write about how awesome and popular I was, right? But if you saw a video of me in high school, at the time I was in high school, you might be like, Miss A, you weren't actually that popular. It matters, context matters.
So the date's really important here. And then right below that, you have just a very brief overview, right? This is kind of a secondary source thrown on top of a primary source of what the source is actually about. And then at the bottom you have another source, right? What is this source at the bottom? What is this second source? And
The documentary.
where it was actually taken from. Where did this source actually come from, right? And so it came from a documentary survey of the French Revolution written by this guy, John Hall Stewart, right? So this is less important, but it's still good to know because if you found this somewhere, like, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea where I got this source from. It was just I got it from somewhere, and it was on my computer, and it's a good source. But I could say, okay, wait a minute, this guy, John Stuart Hall, he wrote a whole book called A Documentary of the Survey of the French Revolution, and if my paper is about the French Revolution, I can maybe try to find this source, right? Because I know it's going to probably have some good stuff in it. Does that make sense? Right, so even though the source is less important for understanding this, it's still good to know because it's something that you can always go back to if you need to, all right? And so then as you read this, remember, realistically, when you first get this source, especially a short source like this, 2 pages, you want to read it twice when you first get it. You're going to end up reading it a whole lot more times if you end up using it in your paper, but you want to read it twice. The first time you read it, just very, very briefly go through it. you know, get the gist of what's happening. Odds are you're not gonna absorb everything your first time you read through it, that's okay. You wanna get the gist, right? And then after you get that, that's when you read through it a second time, and you really try to pull out that important information, okay? Now for longer sources, obviously that's harder. For a source that's 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 or even more pages long, reading it multiple times can be very time consuming, especially if it was written like 1,500 years ago. That's obviously gonna be harder to read. However, that's when, in that first read through, pages 2, 4, and 6, you may not even need, right? That's when you can start trimming off some of that fat. Because realistically, when you get these sources, guys, you're picking stuff out, right? You're picking out what you're gonna really need. If you have a book, I don't have an example of one, yes I do, I think. I have lots of books from college. So like this book here, this is The Crusades, a Reader. Yeah, this has a whole bunch of primary sources on the Crusades. I took a whole class in college on the Crusades. When I had to write a paper, I was using this for my source, but you see I've got sticky notes in there because I was going through this and I was like, well, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. I do need this page. So I'll make a sticky note, right? And then that's just a single page, right? All of a sudden, I've gone from a chapter or a book down to a single page because I cut out all the fat. I cut out all that stuff I didn't need, right? And that's the thing, with these primary sources, you may only be referencing a sentence or 2 sentences in your paper from a whole source. You're still using the source, but you cut off a lot of that fat, okay? But it's also gonna help with just not throwing fluff into the paper, because that's the last thing you wanna do, right? I'm sure all of you have been told that at some point, especially if you've taken any sort of AP history class. Fluff is never a good thing. It's just words, just to write words, it's not a good thing. Condensing down primary sources into a few sentences or a page or 2 pages is gonna really help to cut down on that, okay? Does that make sense? So when we go into the library, you're gonna probably be super intimidated because you're gonna come across books that look like this, right? It's like, oh good, I'm writing about the Crusades. I need primary sources on the Crusades. This looks intimidating, yeah? But when you actually sit down and you sit with it and you look through it, and it's probably gonna have contents, and you can go through the table of contents, find what you need, you're gonna break it down a lot easier too. Also, I'll say with books like these are really good because this is a collection of primary sources, right? So there's literally, like you can see, everything in here is a primary source, right? So if I'm writing about the Crusades, books like this are like bread and butter because there's primary sources galore in here and they're usually only a few pages long.
Pop quiz,
Okay.
what is a primary source?
It's a source that comes from that time period, from someone who's at the event.
From that time period, an eyewitness to the event, someone that is in the midst of the event, right? As opposed to someone finding out secondhand. I heard from this other guy that was there. If you weren't there, not primary.
I have a question about sourcing though. So like when we cite the source, do we cite the source or the collection of sources?
Oh, that's my favorite question.
If I find a Napoleon speech in a book, do I cite the Napoleon speech or the book?
You kind of end up citing both.
So I would say you're gonna do both.
Yeah.
Effectively, you're gonna do both. That would actually be a good thing.
I was gonna say, this is a perfect question to ask some of the librarians when we're at Thomas Cooper. I'll be honest, I never have a full understanding of the answer to that question. I'm not sure anyone does. I think we all just kind of make up, like, we're all just gonna agree that it's this way. But let's ask them and see what they advise, because they are working with more of that university level research, and I wanna know what they would say to that question.
I mean,
So primary sources are supposed to be reliable.
Yes, so primary sources they're considered more reliable because it's from people that were actually there or people actually living them, but you do have to interpret them. So if you're reading my diary that I wrote in the year 1990 when I was 6, but you don't know anything about what happened in 1990, for example, there was no internet, it would be important for you'd have to like decipher what I meant when I said things, if that makes sense.
But those sources may be influenced by other people,
Absolutely.
so.
Any source is gonna be influenced by a lot of different factors. And we are gonna talk more about that when we get to the library and have a lot more time. You're gonna spend some of the time doing research, but we are gonna spend some of the time going over some of those important questions
Okay.
like that.
Okay, so in response to Sophie's question, this is actually from my senior thesis in college.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I wrote a paper on the social and.
No, I meant like, what'd you do for your?
I thought you were asking, I was like, I'll talk about it.
No.
So this
It's
is,
after 4:30, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a good example of one here. What I did was I cited the primary source and then I cited how it was translated, right, which is usually what it's gonna be, right? So I said translated by yada yada yada, and then where I got the source from, okay? Does that make sense? So odds are the book that you get it from is gonna be the guy who translated it, or you'll just say, you'll throw in at the end where you got the source from.
Because the reality is,
thing is,
yeah, if you're
that.
getting a primary source, I mean, you're getting it from somewhere. Someone has put it on the internet, or someone has put it in a book. I mean, chances are you're not actually holding the Constitution.
right.
You're holding a reprint of it.
Also, yeah, and it may just be like, this is a whole entire book, John of Salisbury, Polycraticus, and that I just put who published it. Okay, so I said it was published by Russell and Russell in 1927. Okay, so that's citing how it was published, but I'm still citing the original author and the original primary source.
Just to clarify, if you're riding with us, meet outside of my office at 8:30. If you're meeting us at the library because you're riding with someone else, plan to meet us at the library right outside the library at about 9 o'clock. If you get there right at 9 o'clock and you don't see us, hang out outside the library, I promise we're coming. And you can always text me and say, where are you? Does that make sense? All right, I will post some things to Google Classroom. I'm gonna post a bunch of stuff. Some of the stuff is gonna be stuff that you won't need till you get to the library. One of the things I'm gonna post is gonna be a homework assignment to help you prepare for the library. I'm gonna post a really quick poll that asks you what your birthday is. Oh, actually, wait, I don't even need your birthday, because we're not going on a bus. Hallelujah. Yes?
3 days ago.
Happy birthday.
Actually, the day after our trip,
It's Tuesday.
day after.
Happy future birthday. All right, if y'all wanna stay and ask us questions, stay. If you wanna go, go. If you wanna turn in now, and I'm gonna let you turn in your notes to Mr. Kuklik. I'm putting him in charge of this stack. I was saying, you didn't know that, but it's happening. If you need to turn your notes in Friday, that's
Oh my
fine.
God, stop
His
that.
name right there.
I'm gonna just do base Sally between now
Allie,
and
sorry.
like January. I want you to spend 12 hours in the library doing research.
I'll shoot her
At least a third of those hours we're gonna get on this trip. And I'll explain more about that too, because I know
What's
you're a
thrown under
little
the
bit
bus that we're
not
taking?
sure what we're doing yet. I'm gonna spend some
What?
time really talking
Like,
about
yeah,
how
those
you caught up
papers.
and Carson and this
We're
is
thrown
time
under the
talking
bus
to
that
you
we're not
and you
taking
caught
to the
up.
library.
Yes, bye Xavier, jeez. My question for you, John, so is your parent gonna drop you off there, or do you wanna ride across?
Where I wasn't right.
No, because
Okay.
you wouldn't have gotten full credit.
Great,
if I
so then
got-
come to my office 107 at
Okay,
8:30.
okay, yeah, thank you. Because, we didn't understand very well how we were right there by the bath, by the road.
No, I totally understand. Carson, that was my down tonight. But that's, he's gonna drive a car and I'm gonna drive a car and we're all going in as much as we can.
One that we.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All
All
right.
right.
Elijah, so your mom is in wherever she is, Ohio. That's fine.
I think the last thing she did around.
That says, give them a library, doesn't have any. That's awesome. That'll suffice. Thank you.
Miss Oswald,
Yes.
you underlined dot, dot, dot.